Hello and welcome to the Colts Cover-2 Podcast. I'm Joel A. Erickson. I'm joined, as always, by Nate Atkins. We are here to talk about the Colts schedule. We are not here to talk about chicken jockeys or anything really connected to the aborted schedule release video that the Colts put out. I just think it gets too into the weeds too fast. Not great. There you go. That's it. Not great.
Not great, Bob.
What we're gonna do here on this podcast is we're gonna have a couple of thoughts on the schedule as a whole, just what our main takeaways were, and I think we did this last year. We're gonna draft. We're gonna go ahead and draft the road games from our perspective and kind of try to have some fun with it that way. We would. I don't think we probably can't get a full podcast out of our thoughts on just the schedule in general. But
how about this off air? It's amazing how the NFL, it just has to make noise all the time and get in people's spaces and people let it, which is it's a great testament to the branding. But we knew what the games were 4 months ago. And so I don't know. It's just always funny to me when the schedule release, their internal branding is such a big deal when it's really okay, now we know the order of things we knew were going to happen.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Just trying to put it in perspective for other sports that I'm a fan of. I do look the first day the Major League Baseball schedule and the NBA schedules come out. But I'm really just looking for when is the team that I like in my area?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I get that. I think I've heard from fans that, they like to go to a road trip a year. And so timing can factor into that. If they want to go to, if they want to go on one of the LA trips this year, they got to look at when those are and see if it's your schedule kind of thing. But I don't know. I love to see, I'm interested in it in a very selfish way. I love to see when the bye week is and when the international trip is and just time of year that we're going to be in certain cities because we go to all the games. But I don't know. It's sort of – there's some takeaways to have from it. It's just sort of we need to draft these because if we just did takeaways on the schedule part of it, the things we learned last night, I'd probably be a 10-minute podcast. The main thing to me was that they got a primetime game, Monday Night Football game. I'm trying to think. I don't think they've played. I think they've done one Monday night. No, I don't think they've done Monday night since I got here.
They did.
Because they did one
in 22.
22 Monday night. I remember them doing Sunday night against the Steelers that year.
Yeah, there was a Monday night game because they had a string there. Yeah, Chargers. They had a string there of primetime games.
Forgive me, the second half of the 2022 season doesn't exist in my brain anymore. Really, the whole season shouldn't. But I was thinking back because I remember they had Sunday night against the Patriots in 2021 was one of the first games I came here for when Jonathan Taylor put the team on his back. In fact, I don't know that they haven't had a Thursday night game since I've gotten here either. I don't.
Yeah, so we'll go selfish right now. This is going to be a little bit of a scattershot podcast. We could try to frame it, but let's just do first through fourth down. So first down, we'll talk about the primetime game thing. I selfishly wish there was a Thursday night home game on there somewhere because it's an extra buy.
Yeah.
It's an extra weekend that we don't get. I would bet that if you ask the players, I think that as much as they hate Thursday night football, just having one of them in there to have a chance to have a break if it works out the right way is probably not the worst thing.
Oh yeah. There were players last year dealing with injuries who said that they wish they had a Thursday game. It's a messed up thing. It's when you're healthy, you don't really want it because it's you're playing a game 4 days after the last one. It's like, come on, like I'm just generally sore and tired. But yeah, if they want a little like time to go on ice, I know Michael Pittman Jr. would have enjoyed that last year. They went so long, especially like the Colts normally have. The other thing I thought was interesting, their bye week is earlier. Sorry if I'm jumping around on the downs, the 4 downs we're going to do this for. But normally they have a late bye week, not this year. But that was part of it last year, was like they could have used a Thursday game somewhere before that mid-December bye week for just some of the guys that were dealing with stuff to have any chance to get a weekend free. And so, and selfishly, I like it for that reason too, is that it's weird. It's a weird work week for us because when there is Thursday, because you're very crammed, but then you have like a weekend. You have an actual weekend, and that's pretty nice. So I wish they had one, but they
the one thing that stuck out to me about the primetime game is that the NFL actually let them have it at home. I've kind of railed about this before. I'll do a quick version of it to finish off first down here. It just doesn't make sense to me why you would have the Colts have played over the last decade. The Colts have played 32.1% of their primetime games at home, which is by far the fewest in the league. And people say, well, that's because they haven't been good during that stretch. Nope. That the fact that it's a home game should not have any bearing on that. Because like when Nate and I sit down on Friday and we're sitting in the media room waiting for Shane Syke to come in, we're talking about the weekend with the other beat writers, and we're talking about what the primetime games are. I don't think we've ever said, oh, I really want to watch the Monday night game because it's in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly.
It's for most of the country, it's on, and for the part of the country that honestly the NFL cares about, like it's on TV. Like where it doesn't affect where it is doesn't affect whether or not you want to watch it. The matchup does. That's why the Colts don't have very many primetime games.
Yeah,
because they've been bad. But them not getting home primetime games, to me, that doesn't make sense that has anything to do with it.
I've seen a theory out there that they're being punished for Chuck Picano's trick play years ago.
I see the thing with that is I think the NFL probably liked that.
I know. So I don't know.
The NFL wants you talking about the primetime game and for whatever reason it is. So I do think there actually is a penalty for the Colts for not having those games at home. Because when there's a home primetime game, everyone's got a little more energy, everyone's got a little more juice to them going to the game. It's easier to sell all the tickets. There's people spend more money. There's more benefit for the actual team hosting the game than there is for the NFL in terms of the broadcast, because the broadcast is just dependent on matchup. So at least they gave them a home primetime game, because 32.1% makes no sense.
Yeah, and it's interesting because since I've gotten here, I think they've had 3 total home primetime games. So there might be one I'm forgetting, but it's that Patriots one.
2 of them were flexed, right? Wasn't the Patriots one flexed?
Yeah, that one was flexed.
And so was
2 in that 2022 season.
And so was the Texans Colts finisher in 2023. Yeah. That was also flexed.
Okay, so that's the 4th, because I was thinking there were 2 in that 2022 season, believe it or not. 2. Jeff Saturday got to coach in 2 primetime home games, so that's very random. But not many since then. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool for the city to have one of these again. Just I just think back to like that, the one that got flexed to, well 2023 was fun because you had a chance to go to the playoffs. But and I think that felt like that year fans were kind of waking up to that team late in the year, because it wasn't supposed to be something, and then it suddenly was. They had Gardner Minshew and Anthony Richardson's hurt, and it felt like just sort of a tread water year with the first-year head coach, and then all of a sudden they rattle off enough wins to, they can win the division if they win at home. But I remember that the hype in 2021 felt like a lot more, because they at that point they were pretty much a playoff regular. They made the playoffs year before that, 2 years before that, won a playoff game. And they just rolled Buffalo in Buffalo. They were becoming the hot team in the NFL, and a lot of people thought that they had a shot. The other one I'm thinking about was it Christmas night, Arizona? Was that a night game?
Yes, that was a night game.
Yeah, I wasn't at that one, but now that popped in my head that was another night one. So
yeah, that was a night game.
Yeah. But yeah, it's cool for them to be able to have it. I guess, I mean, I'm trying to remember how this all works. There's a chance this game could get flexed if they're not in the right position. This 49ers one.
You know what? I think they did do that.
So, I've seen some people.
The NFL can flex Monday Night Football games starting in week 12.
Yep, because that's week 16. Not to try to put that out there. I think, I expect the 49ers to be good, but they're also a team that's either like great or bad based on if they get hurt. So we'll see. Hopefully they stay healthy and it ends up being a fun matchup. I think the Colts will be in the mix, the AFC South at that point, but they got to be. They got to earn that. If it bottoms out or they're really bad and 49ers are not doing so well, then you might not get that moment. Maybe it'll just be fun to see them in a. We don't love covering night games. Apparently,
don't tell anyone.
Would much rather have it at 1 p.m.
Fans love going to them. We should not tell them that we don't like them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. No one actually cares about the 8 of us that have to deal with that. I understand why fans love them, and they should. It's a different thing, and you hope, if that's a game where like 2 teams are in the playoff mix and it's week 16 and it's right before Christmas, and you got people home on Christmas break and go to the game more. Like, there's a world where that's a very fun event. So I don't know, just cool to see them back at it because it felt like it's like they got those 2 home primetime games in 2022 that were both kind of embarrassing to watch for different reasons. They messed up the clock, forgot to take a timeout to lose to the Steelers, and then just got absolutely annihilated, run off the field by the Chargers. And then they weren't on the schedule at all the past 2 years until they just had one flex there in week 18 against the Texans. It's almost like they were just written off based on kind of the way their 2022 season went. So, and they haven't made the playoffs since then, but this is where you hope, if you're a fan, you hope that's a game with juice for both teams and late in the year. It could be fun.
Second down here. I think there's a chance for the Colts to get off to a good start. I realize what I'm saying. They don't ever get off to a good start.
I was going to say, so you're saying after week 1?
Maybe. Yeah.
We know how that goes.
But they play 5 of their first 8 at home. And out of those 5, only one of those teams was a playoff team last year, and it was Denver, which was one of the weaker playoff teams. So, we'll get to this in 3rd down or 4th down when we talk about the travel the Colts have to do. But it's really not. There's really not a ton of it early in the season. They spend a lot of time at home and against opponents that should, in theory, be fairly gettable. So, I think, if this team is going to be in the mix, they're going to definitely have to do it early in the season.
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed when I was looking at that is this is like the other side of that travel piece we'll get to with the Colts, but 2 of those teams in that stretch, back-to-back home games against the Raiders and Cardinals, that's long trips for those teams to play at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is 10 a.m. their time. If you look, like there's been some studies done on it, pieces written on like that type of travel and that type of body clock change really can impact those West Coast teams. And either of those teams are great, probably the best average. So that it is a nice setup to the schedule. I'd say all the way to their bye week. Honestly, you look at this stretch. Of course, we say this now, and there's always going to be a team or 2 that surprises us and is just a lot better than we realize. But to me, on paper, it's those 2 LA teams, felt like really legit playoff teams coming off last year that I think will definitely look like that again. There's some average teams on paper to me: Broncos, Dolphins, and Falcons, and me. And then you have to figure out what the Steelers are as they're currently constructed with the quarterback that they don't have and having just traded away their star receiver for a draft pick next year. They look pretty terrible, but also I assume they will find some quarterback between now and then if Aaron Rodgers ever wants to sign there, and Mike Tomlin finds a way, and it's at Pittsburgh. So I'm not saying it's a walk in the park, but there's the only game in that until the bye week that looks like the only ones that I think are like really uphill battles on paper are going to be the 2 LA trips because they're both road games. They're long travel. Those are like teams I think are legit playoff teams with quarterback play that this team is just not in the realm of right now. So, but just on the quarterbacks they're going to face in that stretch, there's Bo Nix is fine, Kyler Murray is fine, Geno Smith is fine. We'll see on Michael Penix, but then you got Cam Ward for 2 games. Certainly talented enough to be the number 1 pick, but he's a rookie, and then Tua in week 1. So, and then again, who knows with the Steelers? So and then there's always like some injuries that can make that even worse. So it is not a tough first half of the season.
What do you got for a third down on schedule observations?
Third down. Well, I don't know. I find it interesting how backloaded their divisional slate is. It's usually like early in the season. It feels like they have all these AFC South games like just right out of the gates. And this year they're all tucked at the back. So you get to the final 6 weeks and 4 of those are divisional games. And it's weird because it's both Texans, both Jaguars games are in those final 6. And then the ones against the Titans are in the first 8 weeks. So yeah, it's especially the Texans ones are interesting to me because I just don't expect the Titans or Jaguars to be that good this year. We'll see. We'll see if Cam Ward can have a great rookie year. If Travis Hunter ignites the Jaguars, they get back to what they were a couple of years ago. But right now, this feels like the Texans' division to lose because I felt like last year was kind of the worst version of them, so long as they have C.J. Stroud healthy. But they had the injuries at wide receiver that were very tricky, and they just mailed in their offensive line. In who knows, maybe they're still there now that they traded away Laramie Tunsil. But I just think their defense is really coming together. They've got C.J. Stroud. They're the 2-time reigning division champs. So to get them twice in the final 6 weeks is fun and interesting. And then look at that Week 18 game. It's currently TBD both on the time and the day of it because that's sometimes when they put games on Saturday. But those late season games, as we saw just a couple of years ago with the Texans, can be flexed to have multiple primetime opportunities. So there's a world where there's a world again where if this goes well enough for the Colts this year, that Week 18 can be a kind of win and get in scenario. And who knows, maybe they get a second primetime game. It's just interesting that it felt like the Texans games have become such a referendum on where this team is at the past couple of years. I just think about like the first one, Anthony Richardson. He had the brain injury, so it was a little confusing on that level. But like the breakout performance, then the 2 rushing touchdowns, the trick plays from Shane Steichen, that was kind of their big arrival moment coming off of a week 1 clunker, and then like the last game that year, losing as close as they did. The 4th and 1 and all of that stuff. And then last year, both games felt like the first one was what got us all alarmed about the defense, specifically the run defense. And then the last one, or the second one was, led to a benching and a tap out. And like, there's just big stuff that happens every time these teams play anymore. And so I think it's kind of fun that that's how the season's going to end.
Yeah, the division is weird. I don't have a good feel for any of those teams. Like, the Texans, to me, it just feels like the offensive line is such a question mark.
Yeah.
And we saw last season what it can do to them when the offensive line isn't good. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting point that they're all at the back end. For fourth down on the schedule, I'm just going to go with this. The schedule, the Colts are going to travel the 7th most miles in the NFL this year. That really boils down to 4 trips. Seattle, Berlin, and the 2 LAs. I'd be curious to hear what you think. I know some people thought that the best thing would do would be get two of them out of the way at once, maybe stay out there. I actually think it's good for the Colts that those games are spread out. There's at least 3 weeks between them in every chance. I think the cumulative effect of making those flights, if it was every other week or something like that for 6 weeks, would be a bigger deal than doing it once and then having a chance to kind of get your bearings again, and then doing it again, and then you have a chance to get your bearings. I just think it maybe I think I'd rather have them spaced out if I could.
Yeah, they're spaced out on the schedule pretty nicely because between the 2 LA games, you have 2 home games. You obviously have the bye week coming off of the Germany trip, which is the mega travel one, and then 2 home games following the trip to Seattle, and the one is on Monday night, so it's an extra rest day coming back home to another game. It is a little they don't think through this because it's just all the games in a row. But I was thinking through like in terms of our travel, and the same thing for the Colts. It is weird that they'll have back-to-back LA trips. Will be their like 2 road games back-to-back LA. I selfishly wish we were going to LA at like different times of the year just to see it in different moments. But yeah, it's in terms of their actual what matters for how it's going to affect them as a team. It broke out pretty well. I guess there could be a world where they had like, those 2 LA or like an LA Seattle deal was back to back and they stay out there. And I don't know, because there's the thing about that to me is like you then are spending 2 weeks to adjust to Western time zone, then to get out of it. There's a reason the NFL puts the bye week after the Germany trip, which is a more extreme jet lag, but it's like that's because you did spend several days trying to try to adjust to that, and now you're going to get a week to readjust. So I don't know. I think it worked out just fine for what they've got to do, the amount of travel that they have to have, and it's hard to look at this schedule, I think, and feel like the Colts got put in a bad position in any way once we knew who the teams were. Like you talk to most players, they really like the mid-season bye week. There's an argument for late season in terms of like that's when injuries are really piling up, but I just remember there's so many conversations with players talking about how like it just feels like forever away to look to mid-December as their bye week when they're feeling a certain way by early October. And it's a different deal when it's a month earlier than that. So between the travel, they only have they have 1 segment of back-to-back road games, and that's when they're at Jacksonville and then Seattle. But they have, let's see here, 4 moments of back-to-back home games. So their road games are very like spaced out to where you're not on the road consistently all that much, which is what teams want.
Okay, that's our thoughts on the schedule. Time for the beat writer draft. I'm going to give. Okay, so ground rules. We're going to take, I believe it's 9 road trips because the Berlin game is a home game, technically. Let me double check that real quick. In the regular season, I think it's 9.
It's 8 in the regular season. 8 if we don't count the Berlin.
You have to count Berlin. Okay. And then we're going to add the Baltimore game in there in the preseason, the Baltimore trip. Which, spoiler, inside the IndyStar's thing, I don't think anyone's claimed that one yet. So maybe that tells you where the draft pick's going to go. So that gives us 10. That gives Nate the first pick. Because Nate loves it if I have the last pick because it's funny. It's the most funny thing for him.
It is.
So
it's very funny. I'm very happy. I'm like the Titans. I'm so excited to have the number 1 pick in this draft. Both mostly for what it's going to do to Joel, but also personally, I think it's an easy number 1 pick. I'm going with the Germany trip. International games were just very, very cool. The Colts are, back in that cycle now. This will be the second time in 3 years now that Germany is becoming their territory as the NFL expands into international regions. And that trip was a lot of fun a couple of years ago, just to to get out to Germany. I'd never been to Europe, never left mainland of the of North America, so that was fun. But just to, just kind of to see that event for Europe, like it becomes such a European event. There's people from all over. That was I got to write a story out of that, 2 stories out of that were actually kind of interesting. One on how Dio Dangbo got to play in front of his uncle for the first time ever. His uncle, who lives in London, was able to drive over with the rest of his family. Daryl Baker Jr. had a kid born on the flight to Germany. Like, it's just and that one's obviously a random thing, but it's such a different thing for them to just leave the country and like live somewhere else for like even just half a week. They're just in a new sphere, and I'll be curious to see what Berlin is like, because Frankfurt was historical and it was fun for a day, but there's not a lot going on outside of taking in kind of one historical kind of scene and then the kind of big stage area where the NFL gathers and hypes up the game. I'm interested to see in a much bigger metropolis like Berlin. So I don't know, that could be a fun trip. Also the fact that the bye week's right after, so it just feels like that road game is also coming at the most fun time in the schedule.
Most of my thoughts on Berlin, or my knowledge of Berlin, is related to World War II knowledge, which I think is just burnishing my dad credentials, that I have lots of World War II knowledge in there. I don't know a ton in terms of like the modern Berlin, but yeah, probably an easy number 1 pick. My pick for number 2, I'm gonna go Seattle. I love Seattle. I actually have not been out there for a football game. I have been in the stadium for a concert, but not for a football game. I went to U2 with Mumford & Sons as the opener. My wife and I flew up there and did 3 days in downtown. Didn't have a car, just stayed in downtown and walked around. It was really fun. Love Seattle. Just the coffee, the market. There's a sushi restaurant up there that I really hope survived COVID. I haven't checked yet because I don't want to make myself upset at this point in the year over something like that. That'd be very excited to go back to. Just really, really like that downtown and like the stadium. And it's one of I think it might be the last stadium that I haven't seen NFL stadium that I haven't seen a football game in. I've been to all of them, but I think this is the last one that I haven't seen a game in. So I got to be honest. I don't think Seahawks Colts is going to top U2 and Mumford & Sons doing Mothers That Disappeared with Eddie Vedder doing the second verse in a surprise appearance. I don't think so. Also, we were 6 rows off the stage for the Joshua Tree part of the concert, which is it was the Joshua Tree annual tour, and that's my favorite album of all time. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for it to beat that, but I love Seattle. Huge fan of that trip.
Yeah, that's you laid that out pretty darn well. I've not been there for a concert. I've been there for one game. And fun fact is about me is I've covered 3 NFL teams across 9 seasons and seen 1 playoff game, and it was in Seattle. It was a wild card game between the Lions and Colts in 2016.
This is your reminder that Nate at least holds 1% of the Colts' futility since he got here.
It's all my fault.
Just 1%. Just 1.
I think Seattle, though, that's Germany's the easy number 1 choice. Seattle is the easy number 2 choice. That's like the Travis Hunter of this draft because it is just such a cool trip, both for the city, all the stuff you laid out. I love the seafood there too, and in the donut scene. Fun fact is also very, very fun there and creative. But it's also that stadium is just so cool. It is the loudest stadium I've ever been in. I mean, I've been to Arrowhead, which we'll get there again this year. I'm trying to think some of the other ones: Buffalo, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, New England. I mean, depends on what those teams are doing at that time. But to see Seattle during the Legion of Boom days was awesome, and it's it'll be fun to get back there. So I have the number 3 pick, and I feel like I could go either way with the LA trips, but I am going to pick one of the LA trips, and I'm going to go with the Rams one in week 4. Another fun fact about me, as much as I've traveled for this job, I've never been to the state of California. So this will be the first time, and we'll get there twice in one fall to 2 LA trips. So I am excited to check out LA and, see all the stuff that people like about it. The weather, the food scene I hear is incredible. As someone who loves Mexican food, I'm excited for that. And I'm going to break the tie because there's 2 LA trips and they're both like the same kind of year. I'm going with the Rams because I think there might be more fans in the stands if it's Rams than Chargers. So we'll go with that. But also, like I hear SoFi, it sounds like a crazy experience, and I'd like to get to see it. So we'll get to twice this year.
Yeah, the SoFi of it all probably puts the Chargers game as 4th on this list. And I have been to LA several times. Sometimes for lengthy stretches. When I covered the Saints, they did joint practices with the Chargers out there. So we were out there for, several days in a row. There's a lot to like about LA. Don't get me wrong. I also covered a national championship game in that area when I covered college football. That one I didn't get to see much of because it was a national championship game. I spent so much of my time working. This is what I will say about Los Angeles. There's a lot of stuff to really like about Los Angeles. The weather is usually good. I don't know, September, October, is that when it's hot? I don't know.
It's that bad.
The beaches are good. The Pacific Ocean is great. I have been to both, because of those trips, I have been to both the Angels and the Dodgers stadiums. And just so you know, September 27th, you do not have there's nothing going on at Dodger Stadium, but there is a 6:38 p.m. game between the Angels and Astros. If you're interested in knocking off one of those. I've also done the Comedy Store there. That's a good time. Here's the only thing. Well, actually, I have a couple of things in LA, and as long as we're talking about travel, I think people expect to get some fire from Joel on this. Comedy Store, great. Both baseball stadiums, great. I actually think the Angels Stadium is a little underrated. Dodger Stadium is incredible just because it's always full, and the fans I sat next to knew more about their team than I am a really, really deep baseball fan, and they could remember off the top of their head like what certain players had done against the left-handed reliever the Cardinals were bringing in. It was wild. There's also a disc golf course in LA above Dodger Stadium that I love. It's an incredible course. I've played it several times. Here's the negatives. Here's the negatives for me from LA. The traffic is insane.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get anywhere. I shouldn't say you can't get anywhere. It's just going to take you way longer than you think to get to where you're trying to go, unless you go on Sunday morning, early in the morning, which I have done.
Well, that's the benefit of you getting the Chargers game. There's fewer people. Usually
to go do the disc golf like at 7 in the morning. Then that's the only time. 7 o'clock on Sunday, the highways are yours to drive on. Here's my other 2 LA things, and this is where people get the real fun. Joel not liking American landmarks. The Hollywood Walk of Fame sucks. It's no good. You think, oh, it's great. I'm gonna find I'm gonna find Sylvester Stallone's star or Jimmy Stewart's star, and then you look it up and it's 4 miles or something away because it just is like way down there, and there's so many stars on the thing, and you're like, well, I don't know who this person is. I don't know who that person is.
You got to train for a marathon before you go.
You just kind of get bored with the whole thing. You just kind of get bored with the whole thing. Like the one I really wanted to see was Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart for me is a historical figure. It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite movie.
Mm-hmm.
his history in World War II is something I've read up on. Like he's an actor that I really care about. And when we got there, I looked it up, and I very seriously, it was like you'd have to walk 2.5 miles to get there. And I was like, well, guess I'm not going to do that. So that's a problem. Also, we came out at the part by the Chinese Theater, very famous landmark. We're walking through a very big crowd, and there were two people with giant pythons on their shoulders. And I came through a crowd and came face to face with a python, and I hate snakes. And we left. As soon as we saw the snakes, we were like, this is done. I'm done with this whole thing. Can't stand it. There you go. There's my rant on famous Los Angeles landmarks. Hollywood Walk of Fame and the Chinese Theater. No, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. No, zero desire.
Okay. Well, that's you're not getting me as hyped for this trip as I want to be, but I'm not.
The good news is LA is so big. There's lots of other stuff to do.
Yeah, like we might even for the Chargers trip, maybe we can watch a Dodgers home playoff game.
Maybe. That's true.
Probably a little pricey, but it would be fun. That's the game I want to get to. I'm sure I will check off the Angels, and it's good to hear from you that it's better than most people. It's not their favorite one to go to. But Dodger Stadium, everyone raves about. So I'm hoping for that for the October 19th one. I feel like this is where there is a gap in the schedule draft. This is like, it's like this year's draft. They said there was like a steep fall off after the elite talent, and then it was just kind of whatever. That's kind of a little bit how this one's feeling, because those top four are really fun. I mean, just Seattle, LA, Germany, and so dropping down from that, I think, I guess I'm going to go with Kansas City. It's not a super compelling case, just because it's November 23rd. So it's Thanksgiving time of year. It could be a little chilly in Kansas City. So Arrowhead, I thought Arrowhead was fun once you're in it. I did not like trying to get there. You talk about traffic and mayhem. It is a very difficult place to navigate. That's
very fair take. Very, very fair take.
Yeah, that's mostly, it's in part a compliment to how crazy pumped Chiefs fans were in the time I was there. This was pre-Mahomes, so I'm sure it's even more crazy now. But it's just not an organized place at all. So it's a little chaotic. That part I'm not looking forward to. Once you're in it, though, it is fun. It's like I said, I didn't think it was as loud as Seattle. I thought that got played up a little bit, but again, I was there pre-Mahomes, so maybe it's stepped it up a little bit. But it is a cool stadium. It is cool. Once you're there and you can kind of observe the tailgate scene from like not trying to drive through it, it's fun to walk around in and just see everybody that's out for it, and fun to watch Patrick Mahomes anytime we get to do that. The one time, let's see, I believe Colts have played him once since I've gotten here, and they won that game in 2022 and basically didn't win any other games that year. So we'll see if they can pull that off. But to me, I was selfishly hoping that there was a Mizzou home football game the day before. There is not. Nope. So that hurts this in this very arbitrary ranking that only you and I care about that part of this. But I was hopeful for that. So and there's no chance to get to baseball either. But yeah, I don't know. It's coming out of a bye week, and it's not too cold yet, and yet it's getting to watch an elite team, elite offense in a very loud stadium. So I'll go with that one.
I'll give here's my pitch for Kansas City for fans who haven't been there. So here's the other thing. Nate and I both went to school in Missouri, so we've both done Kansas City quite a bit, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so Kansas City's a little bit of old hat for us. Here's my pitch for Kansas City. If you are a baseball fan and you have not been to the Negro Leagues Museum in Kansas City, that's where I would commend that to you as the thing to do the day before the game. It is eye-opening. The articles on the wall, like you actually need to read them in the museum. It is like there's stuff in there that you never would have thought of. The field that they have in there, where they've got like essentially a 9 of the best player at each position from the Negro Leagues, is incredible. Yeah, that museum is great. And then, the other piece of it is just Q39. just
Oh yeah.
just Q39, the barbecue restaurant. Those are my two. I actually like Kansas City quite a bit. I think for both of us, it's a little bit hard though, because we spent a lot of time there in college. Like when I was in college, the Royals were truly awful. And they would have $7 ticket nights where it would be dollar dog and dollar beers. And so at the time, if you went with a buddy, you could go get ticket, hot dog, 2 beers, and pay half your buddy's gas for $20 and sit in the third row behind third base.
Yeah, that was hard to pass
with your
up.
$7 ticket.
I actually have not done the Negro League Hall of Fame, so that is going to be on my bucket list, because I've done most of those other things. Although it's been so long, I am excited to get back to some of the barbecue places.
Incredible museum. A top 4 or 5 museum in my lifetime.
Yeah, it's hard to beat Q39, but I'm excited to try out some of these other barbecue spots. Kansas City they know how to get down with barbecue, and I can never pass it up. So
I wish I could remember where there was a place on the east side of the Kansas City suburbs that we used to stop in college, and it is not something that would come up on Yelp or something like that, because like it was like folding chairs and folding tables and like barely put together, but the barbecue was incredible. And I say that as somebody who I prefer Texas barbecue to Kansas City barbecue. My pick here, I'm going Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh a lot. It's not a perfect timing for us in terms of Pittsburgh. We get it, November 2nd. The Pirates definitely will not be playing on November 2nd.
You don't think we're going to run into a championship parade?
I am fairly certain there'll be no chance to go see Paul Skeens in the World Series on November 1st. But I like the city. I like the inclines, the Duquesne incline and the Monongahela incline. I like the way the downtown all comes together with the rivers. I like the fact that the stadiums are right now. I like cities where the stadiums are right next to each other. And just the rivers and everything. Yeah, I'll go with Pittsburgh here.
Yeah, I was debating the two of those, because I'd actually never been to Pittsburgh until last summer, and that was an amazing time to get there because of all you laid out, the river scene, and PNC Park's incredible. So we will not be seeing them in late October, but I wish there was a reason to go to that park. Yeah, so that's a good choice. So after this, I'm gonna go. Let's see here. I think I'm gonna go with Houston. So we're getting here a little later in the draft. Houston is Houston is a lot of, it's kind of similar. It's a great food city. So that's what I like going out there for, whether it's Mexican food or barbecue. I get out there fly up there super early on Saturday and just find a way to get both, because I enjoy it every time. And you don't run out of places to check out with all of that. I also like the fact that like when they take some of these trips, like that one's going to be November 30th. So it's coming right off of Thanksgiving, and I like to go to warm places at that time of year. So, that's
well, and also it's not boiling lava hot.
Actually, I lied. That's November 30th is the home game. So it's actually the one in January, which makes it even better. I really like going to.
Definitely not boiling lava hot.
Yeah, because the one year was it 2022, they opened the season in Houston. So yes, boiling lava hot. So I did not enjoy that trip as much as the year before that. I think 21 is when they went late in the year, and it was nice to escape the cold. So yeah, I just think a January trip. And also the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, I think there's a chance that game ends up being, pretty interesting, pretty pivotal for their. Obviously, it's the last game, so it's pivotal for that. But it's, now that I think about it, the Texans and Colts have played in a Week 18 game that was, for everything with the division, and then they also played one that was absolutely meaningless and featured a Hail Mary, but that ended up deciding where two quarterbacks ended up going in the draft. So I don't know. It's like I said, there's always something going on when those teams play, and so I'll give that one the next pick.
I'm going to go Nashville next. I like Nashville. There's a lot to like in Nashville. I've done a weekend there too. The problem is we just go too often. Mm-hmm. And the other thing about the Nashville trip for us is that we're bombing back the night of, which I love to be home. I don't love that drive.
Yeah.
Especially like post Louisville or maybe post Bowling Green. That late at night is usually pretty rough. So the other thing is I looked it up. The Sounds don't play that week. I tend to go a little bit later for this trip. Just because I've been in Nashville so many times. Like I said, great city, a lot to like in Nashville. It's just we've been a lot, and I don't like Broadway. I don't like Broadway at all. I am past the point in my life where Broadway is something that makes me happy. If we're being honest, I probably was never really at that point. I've never been like you can't walk on the street at all without bumping into somebody type of person. So Broadway is not my favorite. I like a lot of other parts of Nashville though. And I think the other thing for Colts fans, you've probably been there. If you're a traveler, you've probably been to Nashville. Yeah. So I don't know that it makes it high on the list.
Yeah, that's for me. I've been there so much. I debated taking it with that last pick. I've been to Houston less, so that kind of broke the ties. I get to a similar place with Nashville as you, but in a different way. Like I like to go really early on Saturday, even though I've been there a lot. It just ends up being like, because you can drive there, you kind of make your own schedule of it and just get down there. And I like to, check out Broadway, check out their food scene's pretty good too. And also, I've gone to a Predators game. Those can be very fun to drop in on. I do like Broadway, but mostly because one of my favorite things to do is people watch. So it's why I like Vegas. I'm not so much doing the things that people do on there. I just like to watch them all doing it. The thing that knocks it down the list, though, is just the day of the game is just kind of a grind. To cover the game and drive back 5 hours through the middle of nowhere, it's a lot. So that part of it is not. That's kind of what dropped it below Houston for me. So as we get past that, let me see. We've got 3 left.
No, there's 2.
2 left.
Down to 2.
Oh, well. So I'm going to go with.
There's a preseason game, and then there is
there's 2. Well, I'm gonna go with the preseason game. It's in Baltimore.
Our editor Nat Newell listens to these podcasts, and I want Nat to know that Nate just volunteered to take the preseason.
Ooh. Okay, you pulled a fast one on me with that. I guess if that's what we're doing, if we're saying that our picks are us signing up to love these cities, then this is really going to set up well for you at this next pick. So I guess I'll agree that that's what we're doing. Yeah, I'll go with Baltimore preseason. It's just preseason it's just kind of dumb. Like it's just dumb. It's weird to cover. Like the only preseason, actually there's 2 preseason games I found memorable in my experience. And one of them was the first time, although I didn't go to it, watched it remotely, was just to see Anthony Richardson for the first time ever. That's, no matter what setting it was, that was going to be interesting. The other one was the last time I did a preseason road trip. Well, we did Cincinnati last year, but 2 years ago, I went to a game between the Colts and the Eagles and spent the entire game and post game trying to find out about a player who wasn't playing. I wanted to see where Jonathan Taylor was and what he was up to. So that's kind of the weirdness of this. There's another preseason game that you covered here that is much more memorable than either one of those for reasons we probably should not bring up on this podcast. But yeah, it's in general, preseason is just not interesting. Baltimore is fine. Like I'll get to see some family out there if I have to make that trip. But that's like the last
Yeah,
time.
I kind of like Baltimore.
Yeah, like it's not against the city. I liked the food scene there. I've been wanting to get to an Orioles game, so I'm not sure.
That park is gorgeous.
Yeah, I was mad that we didn't last time we went. I think it was just after Orioles season or something like that. So we missed out on it. So it's nothing. It's just down there because it's preseason. There's nothing interesting. It's like you're there. You're covering it because it's on the schedule. But it's a fake.
Well, I think this year more than other years, it's a more important game because of the quarterback battle, and I'm not really expecting the quarterback battle to be finished by that point. Could be wrong there. Just I don't think that it's going to be done.
Yeah, that's true. That will make it a lot different than some of these others where I'm thinking about like when they were in Cincinnati last year, there were no storylines. It was absolutely no storyline. It was just like it was just the same thing as this always is. We'll get a new update on Anthony Richardson. I guess him post surgery, that was about the only storyline. But no, the quarterback battle, that is where like the reps are meaningful because they're using that to decide something very important for this team. So that part is true, but that's just about the only redeeming football newsworthy element to that trip. So that's why it's that low. But it's not the last pick.
Well, I'm trading my last pick. I am trading the Jacksonville Jaguars to the NFC South for the New Orleans Saints. So
who's accepting that trade? That's the thing.
I think the NFC South.
Maybe because you're being like all those fans. They all like in the actual draft. Everybody wants their team to trade down, and they're like, "Oh, they should have traded down." You have to trade down with somebody.
I got to figure out what else I'm giving up besides the Jacksonville Jaguars because I think I have to throw a sweetener in here. A pick to be named later, maybe. You know what? Here we go. I will throw in an overseas trip to Germany to the NFC South in exchange for getting the New Orleans Saints into the AFC South and moving the Jaguars to the NFC South. And it just makes more sense geographically. Like you think about the other teams that are in the NFC South, it's Tampa, it's Carolina, it's Atlanta. Like New Orleans is so far away from all of those. Jacksonville's right there in that little corridor. It's not that far from Atlanta. And yeah, I mean, does New Orleans necessarily any closer to like Nashville or Houston? No, but the whole thing with the AFC South is that it's kind of spread out anyway. It's kind of spread out down the middle of the country there. And New Orleans and Houston are actually kind of I think Houston might be closer to New Orleans than any other NFL city. So geographically, it makes sense. I'm throwing in a sweetener with an extra European trip for somebody, and also giving them more chances for London trips because Jacksonville plays in London every year. So I'm trading some overseas travel for the right to not go to the worst city in the NFL.
See, I thought you were so headstrong about this. I thought your sweetener was going to be your first pick. You were going to give up the Seattle pick in order to not have to make that last pick. It's like what do the Browns have to give up to get rid of Deshaun Watson's contract? It's like that kind of a negotiation for you.
I would give up the Seattle trip. Yep.
Well, the Colts love this because if they could get the trip to Jacksonville off their schedule, they'd be able to add one win to their total every single year.
If I could pull off this trade, I think I would be a hero.
Because that's the thing about it is like it's an easy trip because we've been there a lot and we also know you can pre-write that they lost the game. So
easy is a word. It's a word. I wouldn't use easy. Every time we're there, it's like raining or super hot. I would say on top of me hating the city to begin with or hating that area to begin with, being a analyst for the Blue Zone on Fox 59 CBS 4 the last several years has made me hate it worse because it's always hot or raining or both. And it makes that early part when I'm down on the field so much less fun than any other time. But yeah, we need to get rid of it. We need to get it out of the AFC South. I'm not going anywhere. The Jaguars think they're not going anywhere. They were kept promising to go to London, but it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. So, also that stadium, they're building a new one, right?
Yeah.
They need to.
Look,
they need to.
They're not going anywhere. They're not leaving for London because how can you leave the city of Jacksonville?
The only good time I've ever had in the Jacksonville area, a friend of mine had a wedding down in that area, and we, for whatever reason, the hotel right by TPC Sawgrass, or the one that's on TPC Sawgrass, was very cheap, so we all stayed in that hotel together, and that was a very fun weekend. But just to point this out, Sawgrass is not in Jacksonville. It's on Ponte Vedra.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
so Jacksonville should not get to claim it.
Does Jacksonville get to claim Jacksonville Beach?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's too far away.
Jacksonville then, because I do like Jacksonville Beach.
It's too far away. Like that's one of my many issues with Jacksonville is that ostensibly it should be a coastal city, but it's not. You're not anywhere near the coast when you're in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so that's what it is. I'm throwing whatever I have to trade Jacksonville out of the AFC South. We're going to bring the Saints into the NFC South just from geographic purposes. I will also accept literally any one of the NFC South teams.
Yeah, it's like you make that call up and they say, yeah, we're going to decline this offer. And you go, I will take anything you have.
Yeah. They're like, well, you know what? We want to keep New Orleans. Can we give you Carolina? Done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's if this was a real draft, you could try and trade that, but I don't know if it would work. It would you'd have to throw in one of your high picks to get rid of it. It's kind of like when the Texans were trying to get rid of Brock Osweiler's contract, so they sent a second-round pick with him to the Browns. That's like kind of the move that has to happen here.
The only fun of going to Jacksonville for me is that, as far as I can remember, I have not spent more than 24 hours in that city in like 4 years, despite the Colts schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on the schedule. I don't have a lot to refute what you have to say. I enjoy some of the food there, but again, you do have to kind of drive out. Like I get there early enough. I spend more than 24 hours there because I want to drive out to Jacksonville Beach and get to see some cooler stuff. So I'll give it that. I don't disagree though. It's about like the game atmosphere, the weather. It never seems to align and be super fun. So it's
the game atmosphere is terrible.
And then also
I know there's a very strong Jacksonville fan base, but it's not very large. I've never been to a game there that felt like fun to be in the stadium. Never.
We were at a game there once where people were dressed up as clowns.
That wasn't even fun. Not enough of them did it.
And you know who does not have fun at that stadium during those games is the Colts players.
Me.
And you. They're in as bad of a mood as you are because it never goes their way. So yeah, it's
no one cares about this, and it does not help anybody make a decision on which game to travel to. But it's also a bottom 5 press box for food.
Oh yeah. And yeah, a lot of things.
Yeah.
we could get into that we don't that people don't care about. But yeah, it's not a redeeming trip. It's
The only redemption it gets this time is that it's in December, so maybe it won't be as hot.
What's crazy though is that one that ended their season and wrecked everything in 2021 was like the last game of the year in January, and it was so freaking hot.
Yep.
It was in the 80s, just humid. And I was like, what? Like, I thought this was the time of year where it's like nice, but
what if? Where would I put it?
What if December though?
What if I trade Jacksonville to? What if we don't have to go to Jacksonville? What if the Jacksonville Colts both games are neutral site games? So I'm giving up a home game, but I'm also giving up a Jacksonville away game.
Or what if they just fold it? So like the Colts only play 16 games and they just take their L that's going to happen in the Jacksonville trip anyway. And then they just save everybody everything. The Jaguars would agree.
We get 2 buys?
Yeah, a second buy.
Done.
And
Deal.
it counts as the Jaguars win. So the Jaguars are happy about it. They don't have to actually do anything.
I'd make that deal. Shane Steichen would not make that deal, but I would make that deal.
Shane would not make that deal. But hey, it would save wear and tear on the bodies. It would save travel. And you can theorize about like, oh, we didn't actually lose it. We just forfeited.
Done. I'd make that deal.
All right. Well, there's our draft.
There's our draft. I still have not picked Jacksonville. I refuse.
I was going to say, I think I won this battle.
If this was an actual draft, I would just let the clock run.
But if this was an actual draft and they knew what you were doing here, they'd say, no, you don't get leapfrogged. We just like stuff you in a plane and send you to Jacksonville.
What happens if the team with the Mr. Irrelevant pick takes too much time?
I don't know. That'd be kind of hard.
There's no one to run up to the stage to jump them.
Yeah, maybe
someone should do it. Someone should do it.
Maybe they just give it to whoever had the number 1 pick because they're like, you're the worst team, so here you go.
Yeah, I would let the clock run out, and then I would stand there looking around, hoping somebody else ran up to make a pick.
And see, that's why this is not like that draft, because this is not irrelevant to you. This is the bane of your existence. This is giving you nightmares.
They said they were going to move to London, Nate. They said.
They said they did.
I saw Shad Khan at the NFL owners meetings, and I resisted the urge to tell him that I wish he was in league.
All right. Well, this is not the Jaguars Cover-2 podcast. This is the Colts Cover-2 podcast.
This is the Colts Cover-2 podcast. We have finished our drafting. Again, I have still not and still will not pick Jacksonville with my 10th pick. The clock is running. One of you listeners can come up and turn your card in for the Jacksonville trip instead of me.